Hi and welcome back. We've been going through in the last several videos setting up the content areas of our pages. And in this video I'm going to show you how to set up the living room page. And let's go ahead and bring up the finished version of our website here. And you can see I'm going to go to services here and I'm going to go to the living rooms page just by doing that here. Now on this page we're going to do something special with the content area. We've seen how we can create an overall template that has a full width content area, and we've also seen how to divide the content area between a content area and a right-hand sidebar. But in this video what I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and show you how to make hybrid layouts. In other words, a layout that for part of the way is a certain number of columns, which in this case would be full width, and then breaks off into multiple columns, which in this case I've got 3 columns here. And there's lots of reasons why you may want to do this. You may just want some columns of text, or you may want, as I've placed here, to create sort of call-out boxes that call attention to something. And then you can see after I get through with my 3 columns right here, I go back to a single full width column down at the bottom. So how do we have multiple columns on a single page? And the second thing that we're going to go ahead and do in this video is I'm going to show you how to create what's called a modal pop-up window. And you saw something like this in the last video when we did the image box tool. And you can see if I click here where it says click here to have more information, it's going to go ahead and gray the background out, and it's going to bring up this pop-up box here. And again, this works along the same principles that the image gallery tool did, but instead of displaying images, it's going to go ahead and display text for you. And you'll see how we do that. It's very simple to set these up. But for the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to see how to set up these multiple columns of text. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, and I'm going to come back into my project here. And the project page that I want to open up is going to be the living room page, or the living page. And I want to go ahead and I'm going to place these pop-ups, or these call-out boxes, down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter right there. Now, I'm going to go into code view. And again, that's the space that those 3 columns are going to go into. So I'm actually going to highlight that line and hit enter a few times just to give myself some space in here to add some material. Now, I want you to go to the styles.css page. And this is the main style sheet for this page. And when you scroll down to the containers section, you're going to notice that we've got some empty containers right here that we're not doing anything with at all. Box 1, Box 2, and Box 3. And it's Box 1, 2, and 3 that we're going to use to create those 3 call-out boxes that are next to each other. And again, if I bring up the finished version here, this is box 1, this is box 2, this is box 3. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that again, and I'm going to leave my style sheet and go back into my source code here. Now, what you need to do inside of your source code is make a div to associate with each one of those boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and do an opening bracket, and then the word div, a space, ID, and you'll see when ID comes up there, you can just press enter, and it's going to bring up a list of the divs from your style sheet. And again, I wanted this to be box 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select box 1. You can either click that or use the down arrow and hit enter. And you'll see it adds that in there. I'm going to close my bracket, hit enter a couple times, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my closing div tag. I'm going to do this 3 times. Div ID box 2, and then close my div, and one more time, div ID, and then box 3, close that opening tag, and then create a closing tag. And by the way, the framework just comes with box 1, box 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can create as many box divs as you want just simply by adding them on into your style sheet. So I now have the 3 boxes here. Now let's go ahead and add some content to the boxes. And I'm going to bring up my finished page here. And you're going to see there's a headline followed by a paragraph of text. And this is actually going to be an H3 tag. So let's go ahead and add that to our boxes. I'm going to go ahead and do, actually I don't want that much space there. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do an opening H3 tag, and I'm going to go ahead and type modern rooms. And then I'm going to close my H3 tag. Now, just for speed's sake, I'm going to go ahead and highlight a piece of this text right up here for the paragraph of text. Actually, I'll go ahead and highlight that line there. And I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it right in there. Use tab to move that over. I like to keep everything nice and lined up. And then I'm just going to go ahead and, again, just for speed's sake, I'm going to copy and paste that into these other 2 divs. And then I'm going to go ahead and type traditional rooms and contemporary rooms. There we go. I'll save that. Let's take a look at this in design view. And you should now see we've got those 3 blocks of text here ready to go. And I actually want to delete a little bit of this text here because I don't need quite that much. But you could have as much as you want in there. Save that, and let's go back into code view and take a look at our sample. Now, after the sample, you have an image here. And this image we're going to add just simply by adding an extra line in the code. And I'm going to do img, which is the image tag, and then src, which is the source attribute. Since I have the source attribute highlighted right now, you can see in the drop-down box, I can press enter and then hit enter again for browse, and it's going to ask me to choose an image. I'll go into the images folder, and you're going to see I've got narrow 1 there. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And one thing that you're going to want to make note of is the size here. This is 250 by 990. 250 by 90. And the reason why that is important is that if I go ahead, let me move this down, and then go back into this page right here, you can see the image runs the full width of this callout box, which means the width of box 1, box 2, and box 3 needs to be 250 pixels, or the same as you see here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and hit OK, and then type a space, a slash, and a closing bracket. And I'm going to do the same thing for these next 2 items. I'm going to go ahead and do img src, hit enter once I type in source, hit enter again to go into the browse box. There's narrow 2. I'll type a space, a slash, and a closing bracket. And then finally we'll come down here to box 3, and I'm going to go ahead and make a blank line to put that on. And then I'm going to go ahead and do img src, img space src, and when src is highlighted, I'll press enter. That brings up browse. I'll press enter one more time, and here is narrow 3. And again, these images are available in the exercise files that you can download for this inside of the framework, or you can just make 3 images that are 250 pixels wide by 90 pixels tall. So I'll select that third one there and hit OK, and then again a space, a slash, and a closing bracket. Let's save this and go into Design View, and you can see the images there. Don't worry that the image is right up against the item below it, because we're going to correct that when we actually create the CSS for this page. Now, actually, let's go ahead and take a look and make sure there actually is a paragraph of text right here. I'm going to copy that and just go back into my source code, and after my image I'm going to go ahead and just open up a P tag, paste that text in there, and then close it, and then I'll copy the whole thing and paste that in there just like that, and one more time just like that. And now we've got that extra line there. So we've successfully set up the HTML code that contains the content and the structure for each one of those boxes. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to set up the CSS for these boxes to actually make them appear as we want them to appear. So let's go ahead now and go into our CSS file. I'm going to click on styles.css here, and I'm going to go into code view, and I'm going to scroll down to my container section here, and at the very bottom of that I'm going to see box 1, box 2, and box 3. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to specify the width of each one of these boxes, and the width of that image was 250, so we want to go ahead and make it 250. So I'm going to go ahead and do width 250 px. And I want to do that for each one of these boxes right here. We'll save that. And again, let's go ahead and take a look at this in Design View. You can see I've now broken this down into those smaller boxes. Well, now we'll come back into Code View here. And actually, the next thing that we need to do is, instead of having these stack on top of each other, we want them to float into the left so that they're side by side. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add the property float left. And again, I'm going to do that for each one of my divs here. We'll save that and come back into Design View, and now they're looking more like columns. You can see each one has floated to the left as far as it can go. The next thing we want to do is we want to space these out a little bit. So we're going to apply some margin to this. So I'm going to go ahead now and come back into my code view, and I'm going to go ahead and do margin, and I'm going to go ahead and just make it 25. And remember, since I'm doing 25 px, it's going to give me 25 pixels of margin, top, bottom, left, and right, because I just have one value there. We'll save that and take a look in Design View, and you can see the way this is looking. Still not looking too terribly good. We got too much space up here on the top. And we also don't want this pushed in, or maybe we want it pushed in a little bit more from the left. And we want the spacing in between the boxes to be a little bit more. But let's go ahead and go back into Code View and copy this and paste it twice more in and save it, and just take a look and see how it's looking. And actually, that doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to. There's actually now just enough space in between them and to the left of each one of them. And the one thing that I don't think we're going to want is so much padding on the top, but we'll come back to that later. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our finished product. We can see that there's a gray background followed by a colored bar at the top of each one of these. And this is actually just a top border. So we're going to specify the top border for each one of these, and we're also going to specify a background color. And just to make things easy, we're just going to do a black border on the top of each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, and I can come back into Dreamweaver and go back into my source code. And I'll scroll down, and there are my boxes. So I'm going to go ahead now and do border dash top, and I'm going to say it's 5 pixels. I'm going to specify 000 for the font or for the color, and I'm going to go ahead and say that it's solid. And again, I'll copy that and paste it into the next couple of lines. When we go into design view, there we go. I can now see that line at the top of each one of these. Now I'm going to go ahead and come into the code view and add the one more thing that's going to sort of show me the way this whole thing is looking. I'm going to go ahead and apply some gray border background here. So come back in here, and the final style that I'm going to place right now is going to be background dash color, and I want it to be EEE, or 3 E's. And that's just going to give me a light gray background on the background of that box. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste this in 3 times. We'll take a look at this in design view, and there we go. We can see we have our gray background. Now, a couple of problems here. One is the text that's right here is pushed right up against that top border. And that's not really going to work for us. We also can see that this paragraph of text here and this paragraph of text here is pushed right up against the edge of the box. Now, what you might be tempted to do at this point is this. Whoops. I'm going to come back into code view here, scroll down until I find my containers, and actually I've gone ahead and put too much on one line. I can't see it all. I'm going to click right by border and hit tab or enter, and then tab that over a little bit. Just like that. And that just is so that I can see everything. Another thing that I haven't mentioned about CSS, it totally doesn't matter the order that you put the properties in. In other words, I could do width, float, margin, border, background here, or I could do background, margin, width, float, border. Totally doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here. And again, what you may be tempted to do is just say padding is 5 pixels. And save that. And when I look at this in design view, you're going to see that I now have some space here. I didn't do it over here, but I now do have a little bit of space in here. If I come back in here to code view and make the padding 15 pixels and save it, you're going to see I now have even more space in here. The reason why I have more space in there is that I've placed padding all the way around the box. And that includes this image here. So if you want the image to come right up against the edge of the box, you're going to need to come to some other kind of solution. And here's what you would do. And again, if this works for you, and this is the way you want it to look, there's nothing wrong with this. If this is the way you want your box to look, you're all set. The only issue is if you wanted the image to come all the way to the edge while still giving you yourself some space around your text. Let's see how we would do that. I'm going to come back into code, and I'm going to take the padding off of this one here and save this. And what we want to go ahead and do is we want to affect the headings, the H3s, and the paragraphs that are inside of this box. Again, if I come in here to code view for design, or look at the source code here, I want to affect this H3, this paragraph, and this paragraph, but not the image right here. So here's what we're going to go ahead and do with that. Oops. Come back in here to the code view for my CSS styles. Now, this style is going to affect H3s in box 1, box 2, and box 3. It's also going to affect paragraphs or P tags in box 1, box 2, box 3. And we want it to be consistent. We don't want one box to be different from another. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to do what's called a grouped selector. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type a number sign and then box 1. Whoops. And then I'm going to do a space and H3. Now, what's happening here is I'm basically saying look in the div or look in the object with the ID box 1 and find any H3s that are in box 1. And then the comma is going to separate that from the next selector that I'm going to do, which is going to be look in box or look in ID 2 and whoops, and we want to find any H3s that are in there. And then another comma, and we're going to go ahead and do box 3 H3. So this is a grouped selector that we have here. It's saying apply the same style to all these H3s that are in either box 1, box 2, or box 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a curly bracket, and I'm going to go ahead and add in my style, which basically what I want is I want some space on the top and the bottom, and then on the left and the right. I want a little bit more space on the top, so I'm going to say give me 20 pixels of margin on the top. I want 10 pixels of margin on the right, 10 pixels of margin on the bottom, and also 10 pixels of margin on the left. So 20 on top, 10 on the bottom, 10 on the left, and 10 on the right. And now let's go ahead and close our curly bracket, and I'm going to save this and do the exact same statement. So I'm going to copy this, highlight, and copy. And now I'm going to paste this in again, only I'm going to change the H3s to P's because I want to modify the paragraphs that are in these boxes. And again, I'm going to give it a different amount of margin space right here. In this case, I'm going to want, let's go ahead and make it the same. I'm going to make it 5 pixels top and bottom and 10 pixels left and right. And the 10 pixels left and right will allow it to line up with my heading nicely. Let's go ahead and save that and go into design view here. And now you can see I have some space around the text content, but no space around the images. And I actually may want a little bit more space on the bottom of these paragraphs. So I could go ahead and again go into my source code here for my CSS. Whoops. Go into the code for my CSS and scroll down here. And there are the P tags. And I do want 5 pixels on the top. But I'm going to go ahead and say put 10 pixels on the bottom and 10 pixels on the left. Remember, when you have two values in either a margin or a padding property, it's top, bottom, left, and right. But when you have 4 values in a margin or padding statement, it's top, right, bottom, left. It's going clockwise around the box. And let's go ahead and save this and come into design view. And there we go. That seems like a little bit better spacing right here. Let's bring up our original, and you can see these lines up here are different colors, and they're also thicker than what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and again go into the CSS for this and scroll up a little bit, and I'm going to take that space out of there just to clean that up here. And I'm going to go ahead and say the border top should be 15 on each one of these. And I could very easily modify the color for each one of these just by going into like a color wheel here. And I can drag this down so it's going to be like a dark orange on that one. Highlight that and type a number sign again. And let's go ahead and maybe do a really dark greenish color on that one. I'm just picking these at random. And then let's go ahead and actually that'll be that color right there. And let's select like a beige-ish color for this one. And again, all I'm doing to replace this code is I'm highlighting the whole code, including the pound sign, then typing a pound sign over it, and brings up this color prism. I'll select my color wheel here and come down here and grab like a beige-ish color, just like that. And I'll save it. And let's go into design view, and now you can see I've got something a little bit larger up there at the top. So now we have 3 columns of text in our hybrid layout. Now, the next thing that we want to go ahead and do in this is create these pop-ups. And again, these are called modal pop-ups. If I click this link right here, you'll see what happens. It fades this out and brings up a text box that I can fill information in. And this is very, very flexible the way this is created, and will allow you to use regular CSS styles to format the content that's inside of here. You could also include images. And in the case of the sample here, you can see I've just got text, but you'll see how easy it is to add an image into this box. And again, we're going to do this in the next video. So I'll see you then.